It may be a quote directed towards Batman from Jack Nicholson's Joker back in 1989, but the phrase, "Where does he get those wonderful toys?" is likely one that many a Green Arrow rival has pondered. Much like the Dark Knight has his famed utility belt and advanced technology to fall back on, the Green Arrow has a whole host of arrows up his sleeve. Well, in his quiver, but you get the idea. In addition to his standard arrows, the decades have seen Oliver Queen develop explosive arrows, tech-driven hacking arrows, zipline arrows, and a wide variety of more rational, logical arrows that are used on a relatively frequent basis by the Emerald Archer. Just like Batman and his toys, these trick arrows have grown to become just as much a part of GA lore as his trademark Van Dyke facial hair. Away from these more standard pieces of kit though, Ollie also has some more outlandish and powerful items of weaponry at his disposal, ranging from decimating arrows to some absolutely bonkers arrows. Digging deep into the Green Arrow's arsenal then, here's a look at just what wonderful delights the Master Bowman so often has at his fingertips. I'm Kirsten from What Culture Comics, and here's every trick arrow in Green Arrow's arsenal. Number 10, the AQUA-LUNG arrow. In case of being required to take an emergency deep water dive, what better thing to have at your disposal than the AQUA-LUNG arrow? To give this some context, this most bizarre of arrows was put front and centre in 1958's World's Finest number 97. In a story titled The Menace of the Mechanical Octopus, Green Arrow and Speedy find themselves fighting a giant robotic octopus. Because, of course. Deciding there's only one way to safely enter the water for just such a battle, Ollie pulls out his patented AQUA-LUNG arrow. It looks stupid, it made absolutely zero sense, and it was clearly the sort of story that belonged in the Silver Age. Thankfully, the end of the Silver Age would see the Green Arrow embark on one of his very best runs, with Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams coming together to give the character a much-needed revamp. To no one's surprise, the AQUA-LUNG arrow was not in Oliver Queen's arsenal. Number 9, the Greek Fire Arrow. Visually, the Greek Fire Arrow is one of the most impressive in the Green Arrow's arsenal, and if used correctly, it can also be one of Ollie's most lethal weapons. For his Greek Fire Arrow, Ollie Queen has pimped an arrowhead with fluid to the extent that the end result is an arrow whose tip features a continuous burning flame. In terms of uses, this arrow can be fired at a target to set it alight, and there's also the prospect of firing this flaming inferno of an arrow directly into an opponent, should the Green Arrow have the urge. Clearly, the Greek Fire Arrow, as indicated by its name, pulls its inspiration from ancient Greek mythology. Back during the battles of the day, the Spartans were partial to lighting up an arrow and firing off in the direction of any who opposed them. Over the years, a variation of the Greek firing arrow has been seen across many mediums and across so many fictional properties, and the Green Arrow and his world are most certainly included in the list of those who took inspiration from Greek mythology. Number 8, the Flash and Flare Arrows. More often than not, Green Arrow tends to find himself outnumbered when it comes to confrontations with villainous sorts. But then again, that's kind of part and parcel of the hero game. Still, when the odds are against him and he needs to work smart and clinically, that's when we usually see Oliver Queen pulling all manner of distraction techniques from out of his quiver. In amongst the multitude of magnificent arrows that inhabit said quiver, the Master Bowman has a penchant for carrying several variations of flash arrows and flare arrows. The flash arrows are intended to give Ollie one up on any battles in which the odds may be against him, with the blinding light of these weapons giving him a momentary advantage in which to either make a sharp exit or implement another plan of attack. Throw in the countless explosive arrows at Oliver's disposal, and you can see why the Green Arrow is so fondly known for making quite the big splash when he wants to. Number 7, the Antler Arrow. Debuting in 1941, the first few decades of Green Arrow's existence saw him lumbered with some utterly bizarre trick arrows. When it comes to the most bizarre of weapons, few can quite match the sheer what the f***ness of the Antler Arrow. Yes, the Antler Arrow. Appearing in 1959's Adventure Comics number 260, the Antler Arrow was utilised to save some poor youngster who was being charged at by a moose. The logic behind this arrow is that the only way to stop a rampaging moose is to lock antlers with it, and thus the Antler Arrow was created for those uber rare occasions where one is confronted by a gnarly pissed off moose. Number 6, the Phantom Zone Arrow. The Phantom Zone Arrow is one that's never technically been used by the Green Arrow, although one would have to imagine the Emerald Archer would have access to this particular arrow should he want it. Instead of Oliver Queen, the Phantom Zone Arrow has instead been in the quivers of both Roy Harper and Mia Dearden. In case the name itself doesn't give it away, the Phantom Zone Arrow has the ability to send somebody to the Phantom Zone. as in the shell-like locale where the worst of the worst criminals are banished to. With the Phantom Zone a place forever tied to Krypton and Kryptonians, it's no surprise to know that it was Superman who created this arrow. But how did Roy Harper get hold of it, you ask? Why, Roy stole the Phantom Zone arrow during a tour of the Fortress of Solitude given to the Teen Titans. Harper would never use the arrow itself, but he would pass this all-powerful piece of kit to Mia Dearden, with Speedy using the Phantom Zone arrow to vanquish Superboy Prime during Infinite Crisis. Number 5. The Glue Arrow. In terms of incapacitating an opponent, one of the most proficient toys at Oliver Queen's disposal is his glue arrow. Consisting of a tip made out of a ball of industrial polymer, this particular trick arrow is a sneaky little blighter. Designed to look like one of Ollie's more regular explosive arrows, the glue arrow is meant to lull foes into a false sense of security. While the bad guys and gals will be expecting something on the explosive side, the Emerald Archer instead unleashes a glue-based attack. This glue arrow can stop the majority of Green Arrow's enemies in their tracks, whether that's gluing them to an object or simply covering their mouth with this sticky weapon, as shown in action here against the hulking brick. Number 4. The Atomic Warhead Arrow. While some of Oliver Queen's multitude of different arrows are a little light-hearted, outright bizarre, or even otherworldly, his Atomic Warhead Arrow carries a whole other level of gravitas and responsibility to the world as a whole. Being able to summon the power of a nuclear weapon through a bow and arrow sounds a little nuts, but that's comic books. To be precise on this one, Oliver Queen pulls out his trusty Atomic Warhead arrow in 1968's Justice League of America number 65. Realising that one of his more standard explosive arrows won't get the job done, the Master Bowman opts to up his game and use a nuclear arrow to take on the threat of the absorption alien Starro. This whole story saw T.O. Morrow waging war on the JLA, and it just so happened that Green Arrow was the person to square off with Starro. And despite rooting down to pull out an atomic warhead arrow, Ollie still couldn't stop Starro during that particular fight. Thankfully for fans with a modicum of common sense, the atomic warhead arrow has largely never been referenced since that 1968 outing. You know, because a nuclear bomb in your quiver makes absolutely zero sense on a health and safety level. Number 3. The Nth Metal Arrow. To start things off here, Nth Metal is a material local to Hawkgirl and Hawkman's home planet of Thanagar. While the Nth Metal can cancel out gravity and allow for the ability of flight, the metal also has properties which make it vital in any battles against some of the DC Universe's more mystical and magical beings. Ever on the horizon to add a new sort of trick arrow to his collection, the Green Arrow has, of course, wielded an Nth Metal-based arrow at times. Rather than debuting in the comics, however, the Nth Metal arrow was first used by Oliver Queen in Batman, the Brave and the Bold. In that offering, the Nth Metal arrow is used when the Green Arrow and Speedy have to help Batman out of a sticky situation involving the Gentleman Ghost and Deadman. Elsewhere, the Nth Metal arrow was also featured as part of the jaw-dropping spectacle that was the Injustice 2 video game. Serving as an upgraded alternative outfit for the Emerald Archer, an Nth Metal-based outfit and weaponry was on offer for those who fully invested in the 2017 sequel to Injustice: Gods Among Us. Number 2. The Kryptonite Arrow. Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns is regarded by some as the greatest graphic novel of all time, and while that book is famed for its portrayals of Batman and Superman, Oliver Queen is just one of the several other famed DC names to make an appearance in that 1986 tale. With Batman and the Boy Scout duking it out, it's revealed that Bruce Wayne had called in a favour from an old friend, that friend of course being a one-armed Green Arrow. Ollie turns out to fire a kryptonite-headed arrow at the Man of Steel. How did he get hold of that arrow? Why, it was specially crafted for him by Bruce, apparently at a hefty cost and constructed over a number of years. Not only does Ollie get to wield this most unique of arrows in Miller's comic book The Dark Knight Returns, but as pictured, the Green Arrow also turns up to make the exact same move with the exact same weapon in Jay Oliva's mesmerising two-part movie adaptation of that source material. Number 1. The Boxing Glove Arrow. In the pantheon of plentiful arrows kept within the Green Arrow's arsenal, one of the more notorious and outright fun arrows at Oliver's disposal is the famed Boxing Glove Arrow. First appearing back in 1947's Adventure Comics number 118, the Boxing Glove Arrow has had a mixed history over the years. For so long, this piece of the Master Bowman's weaponry was mocked by many due to the sheer bizarreness of it. In more recent years though, the Boxing Glove Arrow has become somewhat of a cult favourite weapon amongst comic book fans. It may be a little bit bonkers, and it may reek of Golden Age comic book cheese, and it may not really serve all that much purpose other than punching someone from a distance, but the boxing glove arrow is likely the most famous trick arrow that the Green Arrow has at his disposal, which is why so many people grinned from ear to ear at Stephen Amell's Emerald Archer firing off the boxing glove arrow at Wildcat Ted Grant during Arrow's 3rd season.